was able to hear her present a shortened version of what she's going to talk about today at a School of Medicine visiting committee focused totally on artificial intelligence and machine learning. And it fit into that, and I was just giving her feedback about how to think about a broad stroke of approaches. So you're going to hear her the detailed assessment of a novel breakthrough that's having impact now in our patient population, which was discovered here, and so we're very proud of that. And many of the people you're going to hear about in the next little while are focused on the strong reason we do research, which is to help patients here and globally. And so I like to think of it as, and I think you should too, as discovery with an attitude. So we're here to help patients, and somehow we're going to get there. It may take us years or decades, but the job is to think about how we can learn more in any of our fields. And you've heard many of them, whether it's improved methodology to detect high-risk patients, or imaging, or single-cell sequencing, or discovering a pathway. So all of you are involved with that at different levels, and the whole purpose of bringing our MD student community and our PhD student community and our master students community together is so you can commingle and realize that there's interfaces there that you'll carry with you for the rest of your careers. A little hard to believe, but quite real. I also want to thank again the organizers, since not all of you were here this morning. So Leah Marvin, Rosa Hand, Cliff Harding. I think I failed this morning when I asked you all to ask questions, and most of you didn't, so I'll say it again. Please ask questions. If you don't want to ask them by raising your hand or coming to the podium, coming to the microphone, ask them when you're interacting with your co-student colleagues. So I get to introduce Dan Simon, who is the Senior Associate Dean for Faculty for UH in the School of Medicine, is the University Hospitals Health Systems Chief Scientific Officer, President of Academic and External Affairs, and important, I think, for you all to recognize that although he may walk around with a suit and look like he's talking to all those highfalutin individuals, he's been a continuously funded NIH investigator for decades, has had merit award, is involved across the city in a large PO1 looking at pathways of inflammation and vascular disease of the heart, is incredibly well recognized physician scientist, and therefore fully believes in the concept of physician scientists, and has maintained that with the mission of university hospitals. Dr. Kaskorbi came and joined us 2 nights ago for Dr. Popovich's induction ceremony as the Kaskorbi professor of anesthesiology. Dr. Kaskorbi, who's 90, who's been retired since probably 2005, pulled out his name tag, his UH name tag. And on his UH name tag, it says, to heal, to teach, and to discover. And so I like to think that any of you who leave here and walk across the street and walk up University Boulevard, University Hospital Boulevard, and you'll see, coming from Case, to discover, to teach, and to heal. So when you walk out, it's to heal, to teach, and discover, but from us, it's to discover, to teach, and to heal. So we're aligned, and without further ado, Dr. Simon.
Thank you, Stan. It is really an honor and a privilege to introduce our Research Day keynote speaker, Dan Ma. Dr. Ma is an associate professor in the Department of Biomedical Engineering, the Case School of Engineering, and the School of Medicine, and a member of the Cancer Imaging Program of the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center. She received her Bachelor of Science from Zhejiang University in Hangzhou, China, Master of Science from Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and a Doctor of Philosophy from Case Western. Her research interests center on magnetic resonance imaging, magnetic resonance fingerprinting, MRF, quantitative MR, and neuroimaging. The focus of Dr. Ma's research is the development of novel MR acquisition, reconstruction, and visualization technologies for the improvement of scan efficiency, sensitivity, and specificity, patient comfort, and of course, most importantly, clinical outcomes. She is a primary member of a research team that invented a novel quantitative MR imaging technique that you'll hear about named MR fingerprinting. This revolutionary technique facilitates non-invasive quantification of multiple tissue properties with high efficiency, repeatability, and robustness. This technology has enabled a new and more objective way of detecting and characterizing CNS diseases such as brain tumors, epilepsy, and multiple sclerosis that have now been expanded more broadly in tumors including breast, pancreas, and prostate cancer. She was first author of a seminal MRI fingerprinting published in Nature in 2013 with other CWR luminaries, including Vikas Galani, Nicole Sieberlich, Ki-Cheng Liu, Jeff Sunshine, Jeffrey Dirk, and of course, senior author Mark Griswold. Her research attainment is outstanding, with over $11.6 million in funding from NIH and other agencies as a PI. Dr. Ma also collaborates on several MPI grants with collaborators from UH, CCF, University of Pennsylvania, Cardiff University, and University College of London, Siemens, and Microsoft. She has published over 60 peer-reviewed articles with over 6,176 citations and has an H-index of 37, which is outstanding. Dr. Ma is an incredible educator, also serving as a research mentor in 3 T32 training programs, including BME's Interdisciplinary Biomedical Imaging Training Program, the School of Medicine's MSTP program, and University Hospital School of Medicine Neonatology Training Program in Pediatrics. Noteworthy external appointments include her role as chair of ISMRM Education Committee, Cross-Cutting and Emerging Technologies, secretary of the ISMRM Quantitative MR Study Group, and an editorial board member of Magnetic Resonance in Medicine. Key research awards include Outstanding Teacher Award in 2018 from the International Society for Magnetic Resonance in Medicine, Junior Fellow 2017, International Society of Magnetic Resonance in Medicine, and the I.A. Rabi Young Investigator Award in 2016 from the same society. In short, Professor Ma is a rising superstar. Please join me in honoring Dr. Ma as our keynote speaker. I would also like to present her the School of Medicine Graduate and Medical Student Research Day 2017 Distinguished Lecturer, Dan Ma, Case Western. Let's take a picture over here.
Thank you so much for Dr. Simon's introduction, and thank you for the organizers to inviting me. I've been at Case for 14 years, now a faculty here, but I did my PhD here. So I'm going to talk about my research as well as my trajectory here. The title is Quantitative MR Fingerprinting, Translating Advanced Imaging Technology into Clinical Impact. That was a big MR lab back in 2015. So I did my PhD at Case, working on MRI. So the reason why I joined Case, of course, as Dr. Gerson said, 3-component: discovery, teaching, and heal. And I find that there is a unique resources at Case or in Cleveland to do medical translation and, of course, imaging. And I still remember the tool Dr. Mark Griswold gave to me during the open house. So here is the University Hospital MR scanning area, patient area, but our lab is inside there. And this still amazes me. I took this video this morning, early morning. It's a research student lab within this clinical area. And this is how, wait, too early, no students yet. But here's the door, see all the warnings? That's because we got into the clinical area where all the patients got scanned. So that amazes me because I can literally see how our research can be translated to the clinical setting and how close these interactions can be. Sorry? Okay, so this is actually the current up-to-date scanner, but it's for research, purely for research. So we can design any new advanced MR technology here. And another thing that amazes me is that for every single scan there is an option called GRAPPA. And this technology was invented by Dr. Mark Griswold here. And I can literally see that our research can be translated to a product that can contribute to all the MR acceleration at least 3 times. So that's the direct technical translation that I can see. Of course, that involves close collaboration with medical imaging vendors, but we have them all. So that's why I end up here and start doing research with Dr. Mark Griswold and his team. And the basic concept that we want to develop, or the technology we want to develop, is quantitative MR. So what do we call qualitative and quantitative? What's the difference? Here's a very simple example. When a kid gets fever, the very fast and direct way to tell whether she got a fever is to touch her forehead, whether the forehead is warm or cold, maybe she got a fever or not. But it's just a feeling, right? Unless we have a temperature measure to tell us, okay, 39.4 might be fever. So this is the difference between quantitative and qualitative. And we can see that once you have a number, this is really a direct measure that you can show to the doctor and say how bad her fever is, rather than just telling the doctor, okay, my kid has a fever, maybe hot, too hot. So in the clinical MR, we are actually facing the similar issue. That current clinical MR is a qualitative measurement. We call it qualitative is that, here is one example, the MR image. There's lesion. Of course, we can see that this lesion is brighter than the surrounding tissues. What does bright mean? It may be a lesion because we can directly see. But does the brightness corresponding to severity of the disease? Not sure. When the radiologists look at this and say, okay, there is some contrast difference, but there's no number related to it. It's really hard to communicate, say how bad of the lesion is. And it's not reproducible. So this contrast can change from one scan to another, from one side to another. So yeah, that's also the problem it's basically an inherent problem for qualitative measurements. So if you look at the entire, how the imaging can contribute to clinical decision support, starting from MR measurement, and then maybe we do some analysis, and then use those information to guide the clinical support. If we have a lot of variations from the beginning, basically this is just the qualitative, no numbers, not stable, that will cause instability in all the downstream analysis, and also cause problems for decision support because there's no guideline. So here's one example on qualitative MR and quantitative MR. So this is the epilepsy patient we scanned. This patient has paraventricular nodules. Don't need to know what that is, but you can see that there are some big lesions surrounding ventricles that cause patient to get seizure. We all know that seizure is really big effect for daily life, and for patient to treat this patient, for doctors to treat this patient for epilepsy, if we can find a focal lesion, the surgeons can cut this lesion and the patient may become seizure free. But for this patient, the lesion is just too big. There's no way we can identify where the seizure onset is, and there's no way to cut all the lesions. So for that patient, we did a quantitative MR. So this is a quantitative T1 map. Similar contrast actually, but here we have a color bar, meaning that for every pixel here, we now have a number. Like a temperature, this is the T1 relaxation time. So, okay, one thing is that we now have a number. Another thing is it's quite direct and clearly that there's actually subtle difference between inside of those, around those lesions. Now we can see that, okay, this area is much brighter than the other area. So, but we don't see it from here. It's really hard to identify. So what happened to this area then? We then later did more of an invasive validation, which is the SEEG. So basically, they put the electrodes inside of the patient's brain, 20 electrodes, very invasive. But then we have a direct measure of where the seizure onset is. It's actually the red dot, meaning that we can actually use imaging to detect something that's actually useful and quite sensitive. And then the surgeon can use this technology to guide their treatment to treat or ablate or cut this lesion, this area, rather than the entire lesion. And this patient has become seizure-free, meaning that this is really a direct impact for patients. So from this example, we can conclude, of course, there's quantitative, we can draw regions. And from the T1 value, you can see, okay, the seizure onset zone, where the seizure is from, has much higher T1 value as compared to the seizure not onset zone. So it's about 8%. So we can actually use a number to evaluate which one is seizure onset, which one is not. So quantitative MR, one is sensitive. We may be able to identify something that we don't see from clinical MR. And it's quantitative, sorry. So this is the quantitative MR background. The technology we invented called MR fingerprinting. The reason why we're trying to change this, develop this, is that quantitative MR so far is not on the clinical routine. It's just because the scan is too slow. So the goal is to develop a fast, robust, and multiparametric quantitative MR. Fast meaning that we try to put this into the clinical workflow. So just a few minutes, done. Robust, meaning that the scan can be applied to different scanners, different parts of the body. Multiparametric is also a way to improve the scan efficiency. If we press the button, one scan can generate multiple tissue properties. We don't need a series of scans. So that led to a Nature publication in 2013. That was an original group when I was still a graduate student. That was also my first MR paper. Which was an amazing experience to publish the first paper in Nature. But yeah, so what is MR fingerprinting? So this is this technology is analogous to the fingerprints technology we all know. So if there is a fingerprint and if we have a comprehensive database, we can use some matching technology, whatever technology we have, to map the fingerprints to one element from the database. Once the fingerprints is identified, a host of additional information about the person, name, phone number, address, can be extracted simultaneously. We don't need to search for their name or phone numbers separately. So similar to MR fingerprinting, this all MR images, we acquire a series of images with different contrast. And from each pixel, we can build, we can see the signal evolution curves. Doesn't matter what the curve would look like. It can be random, but we can build a comprehensive database just like the fingerprints, and match the signal to one element of the fingerprints. Once this is done, all the underlying tissue properties, inherent tissue properties, can be extracted simultaneously. This includes some inherent tissue property, and also even the system performance, everything from one scan. Fast track to 2016, 3 years after our publication, we already collaborated with Siemens on making this as a product. So this is a pretty fast technical translation based on our over 30 years collaboration or partnership with Siemens Healthcare. And at that moment, it's 20 seconds, single size, but press the button, all the maps coming out. We then further developed our technology, so it's the whole brain now, isotropic image resolution. I want to just show all the maps coming out from just a single scan. That's all the maps we get. Different tissue properties simultaneously. You can see that all the images are registered. You don't need to do co-registration afterwards. And you basically include all the key information from a single scan. So I guess this is the plot of the publication, or all the publication used MR fingerprinting. It's basically growing substantially from the initial publication. Many other sites start to use MR fingerprinting concept to develop their own quantitative scans, which are able to provide multiple tissue properties, not just T1, T2, but physiological properties, perfusion, and the diffusion, and other things. As Dr. Simon mentioned, it's not just a neural. That concept can be applied to other parts of the body: cardiac, liver, breast, hip, everywhere. And I want to point out these are all quantitative maps. It's not contrast. All the numbers mean something. So you can use this number for the following analysis, and that's the key tissue information. So after we generate numbers, then what to do? What's next? What does the number mean? How do we use the numbers? So one thing is that now we have a quantitative marker that we can use to decide, okay, how big, how severe of the lesion, and this number can, you can use this number to follow a chart for the diagnosis. Another is that we try to make this number reproducible. What does the reproducible, so what do we expect from the reproducibility is that we can actually use this technology everywhere in the world. And then we expect this number consistent, and we can use them all. So that's the two outcomes that I see very unique from the quantitative MR. So in terms of the first one, I already mentioned, we can use this number to decide or identify the focal lesion, and can be used for the neurosurgeon to treat the seizure and to treat the focal lesion and make the patient seizure-free. Because we have number, we can compare across subjects. We can do subject-based and group-based analysis now. So here are 5 subjects. Red areas from seizure onset, blue areas from non-seizure onset. And from across 5 subjects, we can compare across subjects, and we identify that for T1, from the seizure onset region is significantly higher than the non-seizure onset region. What does that mean? Then we can use T1 value as a marker to differentiate seizure onset zone and non-seizure onset zone, and then really directly guide the treatment. So using the number, we also can evaluate the treatment effect. So this is the breast cancer example. All the breast cancer, no, not all, the breast cancer patient would get chemotherapy before their surgery. But the chemotherapy can take months and typically involve 4 phases. There was no evaluation during the phase, meaning that all the patients who got the chemotherapy will get the chemotherapy for all phases. And then at the end, they will evaluate whether those patients have response or no response, and then go to the surgery. But we can ask, why to wait 4 phases to evaluate the treatment? Can we use quantitative imaging for non-invasive evaluation? So if the patient have no response to the treatment, we can early change the treatment strategy, right? We don't, and one third of the patient don't have response. So if we can make a change for those patients, then we can, those patients can really benefit from, subject-based, personalized-based therapy. And from this plot, we actually used the change of T1 and the change of T2 from the baseline to the first treatment. And there's already a very significant, very clear cut between responders and the non-responders. And what does that mean is that we now identify a quantitative marker that can early predict which group of the patient will get, first of all, non-responder, and we're going to change the treatment strategy for those non-responders. And the last, this is very interesting example, is the recent study that I participated. It's called OBO study. So we try to use imaging to evaluate the outcome of babies with opioid exposure. So University Hospital is one of the multi-site projects that evaluates those babies who got prenatal opioid exposure. Those population is quite challenging because those babies, once they are born, they have this withdrawal symptoms. It causes them fuzzy, it cannot fall asleep. We really want to understand what's happening. And there's already evidence that they will develop some developmental delay, cognitive deficit afterwards. So if we could predict this early or identifying the developmental delay early, then that would be really benefit. But for imaging, it's really challenging because we cannot sedate those babies, and those babies have withdrawal symptom, and they keep moving. So we cannot get good quality of MR. So this is one example for MR images here. You don't really see, so these are MR images. Compared to the previous MR images I showed you, one clear evidence is that it's so blurry. There's so many artifacts, you don't see the brain at all. And that's a 10 days old baby. So, so we had the T2 star, this is one MR scan, it's too blurry. We switch to another MR scan, bunch of artifacts, and we want to repeat that again, no effect. So there's no way that you can guarantee that next scan will be better because that's a baby. But then we use our new MR fingerprinting technology. There's no artifacts. So it's very clear. We can see the early developmental sign here, which is an early myelination area. And we can also see the cortical development regions here. So the key benefit here is that we can really improve the image quality to allow better analysis. And because now we have quantitative numbers, we not only can analyze lesions across subject, we can also follow one subject longitudinally to track their developmental effect. So this is a very interesting plot that we can use quantitative MR fingerprinting to follow the developmental trajectory of a baby from 6 months to 52 months. And you can see the tissue changes, not just the size difference, there's actually underlying tissue changes that we can track. This is a myelin development. And then, because we have the whole brain's image, we can actually track the developmental for each cortical regions, functional regions, and identify if the baby have developmental delay, we want to understand where, right? So that's the region-based longitudinal developmental analysis. Okay, so after I talk about quantitative markers, I also want to talk about another benefit of quantitative MR is reproducibility, so that we can really expand the impact from a single site to the multi-site. Through the Siemens collaboration, we basically apply this MR, use this MR fingerprinting globally. So how to evaluate the reproducibility and the repeatability is that they're healthy subjects scanned by 10 scanners, different models, 4 sites, actually expand Cleveland, Germany, and other sites, which is quite interesting. Those 10 healthy subjects travel globally for just this study. I won't be that subject. Amazingly, repeatability and the reproducibility from the numbers very small, very good, meaning that variance is very small. 2% to 3% for T1, and less than 8% for T2. What does that mean is that we can actually have very consistent values, no matter whether we scan at Cleveland or anywhere. So we can really combine those numbers to do a large-scale group analysis, maybe for AI or large data. That's all possible. So if we compare MR fingerprinting's variation versus MR's variation, this is ICC reproducibility, we can see that these 3 bars are very commonly used MR, currently clinical standard. So the ICC value, the higher the better. So you can see substantially MRF can reach much higher reproducibility as compared to current standard. So, okay, we have reproducible scans. And the next thing is that we want to put it in the clinical scanner. So this is the collaboration between our lab and the Microsoft Quantum team. They want to, see what's the application for quantum computers and quantum algorithms. And we said, okay, we have a good problem here. Is that how do you design the best MR fingerprinting scan? So we collaborated for 2 years and substantially reduced the scan time for the whole brain MR fingerprinting scan. Right now, 5 minutes whole brain, high resolution. So when the scan time reduced to 5 minutes, also 2 seconds per slice, we are talking about large-scale implementation now and the clinical integration. So now this 5 minutes protocol has been implemented in the university hospital as a routine brain tumor protocol. So all the brain tumor patients will get the MR fingerprinting scan, extended to prostate, liver, and breast. Across the street, Cleveland Clinic, we've been using this protocol for epilepsy study and Cleveland Alzheimer's Disease Center study. Globally, we ship the protocol to Australia to participate their Australian epilepsy projects, because over the year they want to scan 4,000 patients. So yeah, that would be a great data set for group analysis. And through the collaboration with Siemens, we also distribute this product to the rest of the world. And so far, this MR fingerprinting has become a product for many places already. And finally, we got FDA clearance early this year, so that soon it will become an actual clinical product. So that was the event, still a big MR team celebrating the Siemens announcement of MR fingerprinting, a giant leap for precision medicine. And we got fingerprinting cookie there as well. So yeah, that's the big announcement. So we, if we can really switch the first step from qualitative MR to quantitative MR, is there a way that we can really change the pipeline? So we did the first step. So what's the next pipeline then? So we really want to optimize the entire pipeline now. So this is the research study from my student, Walter. And we really want to investigate how do we, if we have the good starting point, how do we optimize the rest? So as I mentioned, we have a great starting point with super high reproducibility. And then actually this good data set can contribute to more robust and reproducible AI as well. So this is the project that Walter did to evaluate what's the added value for the reproducible image features and AI. So this is a comparison of MRF image feature. This is the bar graph showing one of the imaging feature GLCM, the reproducibility, meaning that 52% of the GLCM image features would have excellent reproducibility if we got this image feature from MRF. As a comparison, only 9% of the image feature have excellent reproducibility if we get from the clinical MR. So there is a big benefit if we use more reproducible and good data as a starting point. And to the end, of course, we want to use this good data and good machine learning model to better predict challenging disease cases. So in this project, we start to look at the brain tumor infiltration map. So brain tumor is big. There's no way that you can miss the brain tumor. But the really challenging case is the brain tumor boundaries, right? And that's where all the brain tumor recurrence will happen. But that boundary is really hard to define. So if we have a more sensitive image technology, can we better predict where this infiltration would be so that this image will guide better surgery and guide better radiation therapy or any therapy? So that's the goal of the project, still going on, and we will link the imaging to the following treatment now. If we have image markers for disease, one thing is that, okay, we can guide the treatment. The other thing is that we want to understand what's actually happened on the tissue, right? So this is also an ongoing project. We call it the histoprint, meaning that we can actually, we really want to connect the tissue level to the image level to understand what's the image tells us, right? What's the underlying tissue mechanism there? So this is a collaboration combining tissue modeling, imaging, different scales of imaging, and of course AI. They're trying to bridge this knowledge gap. This is the collaboration between CASE and the UK group. We got this UK Research and Innovation grant for this. On the clinical side, once we have the image, we can of course extend this to the treatment direction, which allow us to do image-guided treatment. That would include radiation therapy, surgery, and also following the treatment response. So now, if we are talking about the entire clinical pipeline, we need collaborators. So here is the recent ongoing project. It's called Academic Industry Partnership. It's really pushed that to the clinical workflow. So starting from the new imaging technology, add the AI technology there. We need clinical validation and clinical support. So it's from University Hospital, and of course commercialization, Siemens. So both hospital, research institute, industry would come together and really make that as a clinical routine. So that's all my work. But I really want to mention that this is how I got there is through teamwork. So this is my first project, MR fingerprinting for epilepsy when I was still a research scientist. So that's a collaboration between CASE and the Cleveland Clinic. That's my co-PI as well. So we are both PI of that project. But I want to really emphasize that we have good mentors, Dr. Mark Griswold, Dr. Imad Najan, Dr. Steve Jones. They really support us to write our own grant to continue our own unique research. This is another ongoing project, MR fingerprinting for early treatment assessment. Again, I have a good team, collaborators from radiology, from MD, PhD. We all work together on early prediction of breast cancer chemotherapy. This is another ongoing work on MR fingerprinting for brain tumors. Again, this is a collaboration between CASE and the university hospitals. This is my long-term collaborator, Dr. Chaitra Badovi, from radiology department. So all the projects are co-PI, multiple PI. I really enjoy the collaboration because everyone has their own expertise, but if you combine them, it's truly an interdisciplinary work. And I also want to mention that Chaitra and I basically plot this roadmap of our collaboration. It started with me as a graduate student and she as a clinical fellow. We started collaborating in 2013. But I guess the collaboration doesn't really start with, okay, we're gonna write a grant the next day. We work together, and we have parallel trajectories. I'm working on paper, working on patent grants, and different applications. She's working on clinical training and different clinical translation of the technology. And from there, we met until all the way to 2023. We finally got the funding coming to CASE. So it's a long way. I guess my point is that you have to really build up this relationship. One thing is that you can definitely work together on a near-term project. Another thing is that longer-term relationship will end up maybe some big collaboration. And next is the fun project. I really enjoy this project. So of course we can generate images, but I'm not sure everyone knows that MR image can be very loud and annoying. This is how the current clinical MR sounds like. should be much louder, but it's just bam, 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 bam. It's really hard to ask patients to keep still if they keep hearing this. Decibel level definitely very high. That's why patients need to wear ear protections in the scan. But the sound doesn't have to be there like that. So this is also the fun of the research is that when you see the routine, you can question the routine and say, no, why is the routine like that? So I can change that to a music. So that's the actual recording from the MR scanner. That's a long recording, but yeah, I can convert the MP3 music to a MR scan, and that's the on the right are the actual. So it's not just for fun, although it's very fun to let the big, $4 million MR scanner to play music as a speaker, but I can also create images and clinically useful information from that music scan. So this is a pretty fun project. It's actually led to a Young Investigator Award. So it's not just playing music. But then interesting thing is that we can, switch the MP3. We can have an album, MR scan album that includes cello music, kids music, Frozen, and pop music, whatever music. So that might be the future of the scan. So whoever you want to do the MR scan, request the music scan next time. At the end, I really want to appreciate this big team's effort. We have a large team working on MR research that includes my mentor, my trainee, and my very close collaborators from both PhD side and MD side. So that's all I have. Any questions? No questions.
That was fabulous. You have a lot of students here, so I have a question for you. If you bat 300, you're in the Hall of Fame in baseball. But in science, we have failures at a much higher rate. So if you get a grant funded at 15 to 20% of the time, if your paper is accepted 5 to 10% of the time, you're doing great. So what can you tell these young students about how you handle the resilience of a lot of success but more failures?
I guess be very optimistic. I don't, if my paper got rejected, that's fine, I change it. Just don't take it really personally, it's just the science. This is what I see for this. I of course, got a lot of failure. This music scan sounds like really terrible noise, chainsaw at the beginning. But, it will change. It's not. I don't consider it as a failure. I just feel that, okay, this may be one experiment, what I can gain from it. So, I got the grant not discussed, but maybe next year or the year after I get the grants from a different way. So you don't need to, go all the way to a single pass. You can span out. And I really don't take it as a failure. I just feel that, I got good improvement along the road. And be very high curiosity. Just like routine, you need to question the routine.
This may be a very, I just don't know that much question, but so a lot of this seems to be focused on more of the structural side of MR, like imaging and such. Do you think it would be possible to translate this to, say, like DTI or like ASL protocols, or are those a little bit more complex?
It is already happening. Yeah, our group has been working on DTI already, and other groups have been using this concept for more of a functional perfusion, other things as well. So DTI diffusion tensor imaging. So is another type of MR scan. But yeah, I think the beauty of MR fingerprinting is that it's a very general framework, meaning that you can change everything from the acquisition if you know the physics. So there's a large possibility that you can, modulate, design your scan for whatever you want.
I don't know if this one is working. The speed at which you guys kind of made it translational and got into the clinic seems relatively fast, and I was wondering if you could talk about maybe some of the challenges of the translational process, especially like having seen the basic science and like the translational side.
Yeah, translation, it really depends on the field, how fast it can be translated. I think for this project, that's why I really want to point out the environment at the beginning, is that this is the place for translation. That Case has over 30 years partnership with Siemens, and we can see the translation happening here. So this is what I really want to, of course, for students, you really want to see that your research can become a product or anything that's impactful. So yeah, so I think for other fields definitely may take longer time. I see other technology can translate within years. So yeah, it really depends on different things, but I think it's just to be optimistic.
So a lot of the scans that you showed, like for cancer, or they're mostly like treatment guiding post the fact. Have you considered what kind of like preventative things this kind of technology could be used for potentially?
Yeah, can totally be used for global health or health screening as well. Yeah, this is totally doable.
I have a question about the fact that you've managed to do a whole brain scan in 5 minutes and getting higher relevance data, and you made it, the FDA approval, I'm assuming, means that's going to become a more clinical practice. Is the cost of that technology prohibitive for wide-scale scalability for clinical application, or is the cost not necessarily different for that efficient and relevant data scan?
So it is I guess this is the new scan. Of course, if you add that to the current clinical workflow, it will add 5 minutes. I'm not sure how big of the cost would that be, but our goal is actually use this to replace some of the clinical MR. So if I can have 5 minutes to generate all the contrast, why do I need 5 scans? So that's actually, we try to optimize the clinical protocol now. It's like, what's the minimum time? Can we reduce even the clinical standard time? Yeah, this is more of a entire optimization.
Just for clarity, you still need the clinical scan, or you can do just the fingerprinting scan in 5 minutes and have all the data you need? Because that's a huge efficiency issue in a hospital.
I know. Yeah. Right now, we still do clinical scans because we haven't really proved that it can, replace everything. That will cause a lot of, yeah.
It'll cause a lot of good things too.
Yeah.
So fantastic talk. I was wondering, as you're using this analysis is implemented in more and more places around the world, I noticed it's on 5 of the 7 continents, and especially in context of global health. Are you making endeavors to bring this to the African continent as well?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's actually, we have this big push on the MR community to have more accessible MR. So one thing is that if we can really reduce the cost of MR scans, then that's a benefit. Another thing is that I know that MR scanner is like $3 to $4 million, big technical support as well. So even we can ship MR scan to Africa, they need fully educated technicians to operate it, need people to maintain it, need high powerful system to, even power up the scanner there. So there is a MR community really trying to design the low cost MR so that, first of all, it's affordable. Other thing is that we can train a local to operate it and then maintain it so it's accessible. And this is on the hardware side. Software side, if the MR can be low cost, are we able to achieve the equivalent image quality as well, right? We don't want to sacrifice our diagnosis quality. So our job, my job, would be to, given a low cost MR, how do I use new imaging technology to boost up the image quality so that we get equal amount of clinical information? So this is very, very good point. Am I good? Thank you.